Yep, this is the best Spider-Man. So lately I've been catching up on all the animated movies, and what better time to address Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, a movie which everyone was hyped for, and surely it paid off. Lately Marvel has been making the worst movies and is on its way to fall off, but sometimes we get something that hits, something that people put their hearts into, something that was made by people who actually cared about the characters, more than the current agenda of the world. And here we get a perfect, planned, delivered movie in the franchise of the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse. This movie doesn't use famous characters just for the sake of it, but uses them because they are needed in the story. They have a meaning, a part in the story. When I watched Into the Spider-Verse in 2018, I never would have thought this would be a full-flagged trilogy, and when I heard that it was going to get a sequel, I lost all hope, partly because of the quantity of superhero content processed every year. And at this point, everything is just garbage. But for once, we got a movie which deserved the hype. I was wrong. This was not just another franchise stretching its story just for the sake of money, but something that was planned a long time ago. The movie focuses on Miles Morales, the only Spider-Man who, after the events of 2018, is living his best life in Brooklyn, until he ends up running into a villain named Spot, a mad scientist who wants to take revenge on Miles because he took everything from him, the basic cliché stuff. But this is where the movie gets really good. It revolves around the idea that there has to be a catastrophic event in the lives of Spider-Man in order for them to become the Spider-Man, or also known as the canon event. Miles Morales, being the optimistic character he is, stops such a canon event, unknowingly. And Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, is not so happy about it. Miles Morales had a pretty good character arc in the previous movie, but the sequel doesn't waste time before progressing it even further. Even though Miles has no problem with becoming Spider-Man, it is the fellow characters and their interactions with Miles that make it progress. Into the Spider-Verse showed the story on what it truly meant to be Spider-Man, and the goal of Across the Spider-Verse was to explore what are the pros and sacrifices required for becoming Spider-Man, but still establishing the core part of Miles Morales. His connections with Gwen, Peter, Miguel, Paviter, his mom and dad, build his character to its peak. I can slowly see Miles Morales becoming the most powerful Spider-Man, physically and mentally. Just for comparison, let's look at the threats of other Spider-Men. Wants to save his city from a vulture, wants to save his city from a lizard and get a girl, wants to save his city from a goblin. But with Miles, the whole multiverse is against him. All the spider people he looked forward to becoming are against him. We can already see that this man is going to become a better Spider-Man. Everyone in the audience might expect Jefferson Davis to die in the next part, but I don't think that will be the case. Miles does his own thing, which literally means that he doesn't have to be a broken Spider-Man in order to be a Spider-Man. He is different. The only reason Miles exists is because of a mistake, an anomaly, but that doesn't stop him from becoming the one he is meant to be. Miles isn't being faced by a villain or a bad guy. He is facing another Spider-Man. He is facing an older version of himself, metaphorically and quite literally. Plus, he is facing a villain too, who is basically a god. But these are not the factors which make Miles great. It's the method he will use to deal with them will make him great. It is his power to save both unimportant and the important lives without differentiating between them is what gives him his best strength, and also his worst weakness. I love the fact that they are going to make it a trilogy, instead of squirting 28 spin-offs and 5 boring TV shows on the whole thing. This will make it valuable, preserved, and now even the casual fans can enjoy this. And I'm pretty sure the third part is going to be solely on doing something different and unique, but that is where I am afraid. You see how every trilogy unintentionally follows a formula? The first part being the good, the second part being a dark masterpiece, and the third part falling short to its predecessors. So for no reason, out of the blue, I have a slight pinch in my heart that Beyond the Spider-Verse is not going to be as good as the second. But another point hints at optimism when we look at the structure of the second part. The way it was paced looked like it was holding something back, something big. The whole structure of the film hints at something bigger. Across the Spider-Verse is only the build-up to a much bigger picture. See, all the previous trilogies I mentioned before ended their arcs in the second movie, and started another in the third. But Spider-Verse doesn't end anything. It only started Into the Spider-Verse, and will only end Beyond the Spider-Verse. The whole continuation part is really good in the second part, where it leaves the audience on a pretty good cliffhanger. Somewhere, it did feel a little slow, because the movie has a runtime of 2 hours and 16 minutes. Which is pretty huge for an animated movie. But the whole thing was setting things up, and even with the mildly slow pacing, it never felt boring, because it had the gorgeous animation on it. Whatever I say, the animation. I cannot explain the animation to you in a YouTube video. You have to watch it, cause it's beautiful. Every frame is just amazing to look at. Giving props to its predecessor, the film also embraces a visual style that pays homage to comic books. The intention was to make the film look as if it had been lifted directly from the pages of a comic. It employs a technique called multi plane. It combines traditional 2D animation with computer-generated techniques, giving the visuals a sense of depth and dimension. This approach adds layers of texture and detail to the characters and environments, making them visually rich and vibrant. This approach adds depth to the visuals and contributes to the overall immersive experience of the film. I also love how the film uses frame rates to increase the aesthetic to that of a hand-drawn animation. Plus, the character designs across the Spider-Verse are the most expressive and detailed. It just goes to show the amount of heart, work, and life went into this movie. It's amazing. So overall, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse turned out to be a smart, calculated, and a worth-it movie. I can only wait of what happens next.